Writing on the Floor. Written by Kathleen Joyce Hutchings. Read by Venkat. Keep a green branch in your heart and the singing bird will come. Kathleen, don't you think that you need a new gate for your garden? Asked my neighbor as I opened the creaking old wooden gate to let the cat outside. Yeah, you are correct. This gate is indeed very old, I said. Well, I need some wood for my fireplace. Maybe I can have the wood from the gate for fire. My neighbor laughed with the usual sense of humor, typical of an Irish person. We had a good laugh about it, but I knew that she was correct and that I needed a new gate for my garden. I myself have been thinking of it lately. The next day, I went to the forge to meet Joe, the local village blacksmith, so that I can order a new gate. "Hello, Kathleen. How are ya?" asked Joe as he met me in the road in front of the shop. "I'm very good. I came to see you, Joe," I said, and explained him that I needed a gate for my garden. He asked me how big and what design I wanted the gate to be. I tried to explain him in words, but it was very difficult to describe the exact idea that I had in my mind to him. Joe was able to see that I was struggling to describe my thoughts. "Kathleen, come into the shop. If you want a gate you will have," he said cheerfully and took me into his shop. As we entered, I could see all the tools and equipment that Joe and his assistants use in the forge. It was pretty warm inside the shop, thanks to the fire they used for bending and smashing metal bars and rods. We discussed about the size and the measurements of the gate that I wanted. Still, it was pretty difficult for me to describe the exact idea. Seeing me like this, Joe went to a corner and brought a lump of chalk to me and said, "There you are, Kathleen. Draw on the floor the design of the gate you want." "Draw? What? Draw on the floor?" I asked him in an utter surprise. I would have imagined that he might bring a pen and a paper or maybe even use a computer, but he gave me a chalk lump to draw on the floor. It reminded me of my childhood. My grandmother would give me a piece of chalk to draw on the floor. I would draw pictures of a cat or sun or a tree, and she appreciated all that I drew, no matter how bad it looked. I was thus remembering the fond memories of my childhood when Joe's voice interrupted, saying, "Kathleen, what are you thinking about?" I smiled at him and said, "Nothing, nothing." I bent down the floor to draw the design of the gate I wanted. As I started drawing, I was very happy, as this brought out such happy memories of how I used to spend time with my grandmother whenever she came to visit us. Thus, being lost in my childhood thoughts, I would have drawn a kitten or a mouse on the floor. But I knew that I was talking to a serious blacksmith, and so I concentrated on drawing the gate and the design that I had in my mind. Well, the gate should be tall enough to discourage the cats from jumping over it and going to the road. The gate should be durable enough to at least last for another 30 years or so. And the gate should be simple enough to fit in with the tone of the neighborhood, I thought to myself. After 20 minutes of concentrated thinking and drawing on the workshop floor, I was about to finish the picture of the gate when Joe's voice announced that he exactly knew what I wanted from my drawing. He was a little surprised that I took up the challenge to draw my design on the floor of the forge. "It was a joke that I asked you to draw on the floor, Kathleen," Joe said, smiling. "But you took it as a challenge, and I did not want to stop you," he said. "Well, I've already drawn on the floor, you see, Joe." "But a long time ago," I told him, laughing. In my heart, I was very happy that I had drawn on the floor after almost 55 years since I did it the last time. "Your gate will be ready in 2 weeks," Joe said, and he also assured me that he himself would personally deliver the gate and help me to fit in. As I was walking along the road to my house, memories of my childhood kept flowing into my mind. I went to my house, made myself a cup of tea, and sat down on the couch. It was more than 55 years ago. I was called Naughty Little Kathleen. Well, that is what my family called me. We lived in a remote hamlet called Shanbally in Ireland, a little island next to the United Kingdom. At that time, there were 11 houses and 50 people living in Shanbally, whereas there are only, I think, around 10 houses and 14 people living there now. My grandmother, Ma Fano, as I called her, lived in a town called Glanamady, which is around 8 miles from Shanbally. I still remember that at that time, my mother had just given birth to my little sister and was considerably weak. My elder sister was ill and she needed constant nursing. I was just a 3-year-old child and I was always running around everywhere. Ma Fano came regularly to visit us in Shanbally to help my mother and to take care of the children. Her visits were a source of great delight for me and the entire household. My mother was much relieved that Ma Fano could take care of the household when she rested. Since I was naughty, Ma Fano wanted to find a way to keep me occupied. She tried putting me to sleep, letting me play in the garden, or to give me toys to play with. But none of them worked. So one day, she gave me a piece of chalk and asked me to draw a cow on the floor. I remember drawing something like a cow, but she praised me a lot for it. I was feeling very happy and proud about the cow that I had drawn. Then she asked me to draw a tree, which I did. She praised me a lot for that one as well. I was full of smile to have her appreciation. From that time onwards, I always remember drawing pictures on the concrete floor of my house. I remember that one day there was no more chalk for me to draw. I went to my grandmother and asked her for some more chalk. We searched for some chalk in the house together, but in futile. Suddenly, Ma Fano took me by hand and walked into the living room. Up in that room, there was a very big white chalk statue of the Virgin Mary. It was hollow and had a small hole in the back near the base. Ma Fano took the statue out of its place, and with the skill of a craftsperson, she tapped the statue on the backside. a small piece of the statue fell down. She took that piece and gave it to me. Down we went lying on the cement floor, and we drew a lot of things. A flower, garden, a hill, a spacecraft, the earth, a man, fish, and what not. From that time onwards, it was impossible to take me away from drawing and writing. When I grew up, I became a writer and an artist, which I presume that I should attribute to the creativity inspired by my grandmother. After marriage, I moved to England with my husband, and my family no longer lived in Shanbali. That statue of Virgin Mary was the statue to which our family prayed to every day. And I still cannot believe that my grandmother broke a little piece of it for me to draw. I was always amazed to think that she valued my imagination and creativity to that of a piece of the Virgin Mary statue. My grandmother died just before I was 7 years old, and her funeral was on my birthday. I do not suppose that she ever imagined that her great kindness to me would still be making a huge difference after all these years. I do not know what happened to that statue in Shanbali. I'd be very happy if the statue went for other children as chalk for them to draw and explore their imagination. Or perhaps for the children to draw hopscotch squares in the road during the long summer evenings that we thought would go on forever. It has been 55 years since I drew my first drawing on the floor. They are very happy and thoughtful memories, I said to myself. After almost a week, Joe the blacksmith came with a big smile. "Hello, Kathleen. Your gate is ready and is exactly to your drawing," he said. When I looked at the gate, it did not look familiar at all, although it was a fine gate. The design that I had drawn and the gate he brought were very different. I was about to argue that I had no recollection of the design, but I forgave him for bringing back my happy memories by asking me to draw on the floor. The next day, my son phoned me and he said that he is coming to visit me with his wife and 2 little grandchildren. I exactly know what I'm going to do with my grandchildren when I meet them.